The Star-Spangled Banner by Elizabeth Raum. At the start of most U.S. baseball games, fans hear a similar announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice booms over the loudspeaker. Please rise for the singing of your national anthem. Everyone stands and turns toward the flag. People remove their hats. You place your hand over your heart. The first notes of the anthem float in the air, and you begin to sing. Before you know it, the song is over. The crowd cheers wildly, and the players take the field. In the excitement, you don't even think about the song you just sang. But the Star-Spangled Banner isn't about baseball. It doesn't really have anything to do with sports. The Star-Spangled Banner is the national anthem, and citizens sing it because they're proud of America. For its first 150 years, America didn't have a national anthem. There were several patriotic songs. Yankee Doodle was a particular favorite. Americans sang it with pride, but the silly lyrics were actually written by a British doctor as an insult to Americans. The lyrics weren't proper for a national anthem. The Star-Spangled Banner celebrates an American victory against Great Britain during the War of 1812. It honors America as the land of the free and the home of the brave. In 1931, Congress finally made the Star-Spangled Banner America's official national anthem. You probably learned the words in school, but do you know what they mean? Let's take a closer look at the Star-Spangled Banner to see why it was a good choice for America's national anthem. Before it was a song, the Star-Spangled Banner was a poem called Defense of Fort McHenry by Francis Scott Key. Key spent the night of September 13th through 14th, 1814, in a boat in Chesapeake Bay off the coast of Maryland. Key watched a battle between British ships and American soldiers at Fort McHenry. For the entire rainy night, Key heard constant gunfire and cannon blasts. Then a deathly quiet fell over the bay. In the darkness, he couldn't tell who had won. As the sun rose, Key saw the gigantic American flag flying over the fort and began writing his poem. Key's poem has 4 verses with 8 lines each. All 4 verses make up the national anthem, but today, most people sing only the first verse. The Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. As the sun set last night, the sight of the flag flying over the fort filled us with pride. Now, as the morning sun begins to rise over the horizon, is the flag still there? Tell me, can you still see it? Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, or the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. During last night's battle, the British hurled bomb after bomb toward Fort McHenry. Through it all, we could see the flag's stars and stripes flying bravely above the walls of the fort. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. All night long, bombs blew up overhead, showering sparks onto the water. Meanwhile, British rockets zigzagged across the sky. With each flash, we could see our flag still flying over the fort. As long as the flag was still there, we knew that the Americans were still in the fight. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Now it is morning, the battle is over. Look again, is the American flag still flying over the fort? Did our brave soldiers win the fight? Is America still free? And the rest. What about the rest of the verses? Nobody sings them anymore, but they are still part of the anthem. In the second verse, Key describes seeing the flag in a beam of morning sunlight. The third verse celebrates that the nation's enemies were driven away. In the last verse, Key thanks God for watching over the country. The last line of each verse refer to America as the land of the free and the home of the brave. Key recalls the courage of the patriots who declared independence from Great Britain. They fought bravely to win the Revolutionary War. The flag at Fort McHenry was remarkable. In 1813, Major George Armistead became commander at Fort McHenry. He hired Mary Pickersgill, a Baltimore flag maker, to sew 2 flags for the fort. One would be a smaller flag called a storm flag. The second flag was going to be huge. He wanted to be sure the British would be able to see it from their ships. Pickersgill asked her 13-year-old daughter, Caroline, and a few others to help make the flags. They sewed both flags by hand. The large flag took more than 350,000 stitches. It measured 30 feet tall by 42 feet wide. Made from 400 yards of wool, the flag weighed at least 80 pounds. The battle at Fort McHenry took place during the War of 1812. Many Americans called it the Second War of Independence. For several years, Great Britain and France had been fighting over trade and shipping. The British tried to stop Americans from trading with the French. France was at war with Great Britain. The British seized American ships and cargoes. They also forced American sailors to join the British Navy. Finally, the Americans were fed up. On June 18, 1812, Congress declared war on Great Britain. The early battles of the war took place on the border between the United States and Canada. British forces won these battles. Soon the battlefront changed to the Atlantic seacoast. In August 1814, the British Navy landed in Maryland and marched on Washington, D.C. The British destroyed much of the city, burning the White House, the Capitol building, and the Library of Congress. Their next stop was Baltimore, where Fort McHenry stood. On September 13, 1814, lawyer Francis Scott Key met with General Robert Ross. Ross was the British commander. Key asked Ross to free William Beans, an American doctor. Beans was being held prisoner by the British. Beans' arrest was a mistake, Key said. The doctor had done nothing wrong. The general agreed, but he couldn't free anybody just then. A battle was about to begin. Key, Beans, and another American got into a small boat that was tied to a large British ship. They would be allowed to leave when the battle was over. During the battle, Armistead ordered the fort's giant flag taken down. He feared that the weather and the battle would destroy it. In its place, Armistead raised the storm flag. Key watched the British attack Fort McHenry from the small boat. The rockets lit up the sky, and Key could see Fort McHenry's flag. If the British won, they would replace the American flag with one of their own. The stars and stripes became a sign of hope. As the sun rose, Armistead ordered the guard to take down the tattered storm flag and raise the giant flag. Through the smoke and fog, Key saw the flag flying over the fort. The Americans had won the battle. In January 1815, the war finally ended. What happened to the giant flag? After the battle at Fort McHenry, the fort's commander took the flag home. It stayed with his family until the 1870s. Over the years, some people cut pieces from the flag to keep for themselves. The flag, ripped and worn, was loaned to the Smithsonian Institution in 1907. In 1912, the loan became a permanent gift. Over the years, experts at the museum preserved and repaired the flag. In 1998, they began an $18 million project to make sure that the flag will last another 200 years. Fort McHenry's giant flag, now called the Star-Spangled Banner, is on display at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. On the morning of September 14th, Key began writing Defense of Fort McHenry while still in the boat. For paper, he used the back of a letter he had in his pocket. He finished it later in a Baltimore hotel room. Key wrote out 5 copies. Each one was just a little bit different. Today, the Library of Congress has 1 copy. The Maryland Historical Society in Baltimore has another. No one knows what happened to the other 3. Key showed a copy to Judge Joseph H. Nicholson. Nicholson was the second in command of Fort McHenry. He was so pleased by the poem that he took it to a Baltimore printer and had copies made. Soon, everyone in Baltimore was reading Key's patriotic poem. On September 20th, 1814, it appeared in the Baltimore Patriot newspaper. It had a new title, the Star-Spangled Banner. Newspapers around the country reprinted it. A small note was later added to the printed version of the poem. It pointed out that the words could be sung to a popular tune, To Anacreon in Heaven. This song was a theme song of an English men's club. The original words honored Anacreon, a Greek poet who lived around 500 BC. The music was written by London composer John Stafford Smith. During the early 1800s, Smith's tune became popular in Great Britain and America. Several Americans wrote patriotic songs using this tune. Some historians believe Francis Scott Key had this tune in his mind as he wrote the words to his poem. After its early success, the song seemed to disappear, but it came back during the Civil War. Soldiers sang the Star-Spangled Banner on their way to battle. It became more popular after the war. By the 1890s, the U.S. Army, Navy, and Marine Corps played it at military events. In 1916, President Woodrow Wilson declared that the Star-Spangled Banner should be played at all government events. People discussed whether it should become the national anthem. Many people felt that the tune was too hard to sing. Others wanted a gentler song like America the Beautiful instead of a song about war. But people in other countries already thought the Star-Spangled Banner was the U.S. national anthem. The U.S. Army, Navy, and Marines used it as an anthem. Finally, in 1931, Congress made the Star-Spangled Banner the national anthem of the United States. Both the song and the flag stand for freedom and independence. They remind Americans of the brave people who have served their country. June 1812, the War of 1812 begins when the United States declares war on Great Britain. 1813, Major George Armistead hires Mary Pickersgill to sew 2 flags at Fort McHenry. September 13th through 14th, 1814, Francis Scott Key watches Battle of Baltimore from a boat in the harbor. September 16th, 1814, Key completes his poem Defense of Fort McHenry. September 20th, 1814, the Baltimore Patriot newspaper publishes Key's poem. October 19th, 1814, the Star-Spangled Banner is performed publicly for the first time in Baltimore to the tune of To Anacreon in Heaven. 1861, the Star-Spangled Banner becomes the unofficial anthem of the North during the Civil War. 1907, the Fort McHenry flag is given to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. 1916, President Woodrow Wilson declares that the Star-Spangled Banner should be played at official events. 1918, the Star-Spangled Banner is sung at a sporting event for the first time. 1931, President Herbert Hoover signs a law making the Star-Spangled Banner the national anthem of the United States.